Hi everyone, it's your friendly neighborhood science teacher, and today we're going to be continuing our topic of living things by talking about 4 new, some living, some non-living things that you have probably heard about before. Those 4 things are viruses, bacteria, protists, and fungi. We're going to be going over all 4 of these things, and at the end we're going to compare the similarities and differences so you can see how they are alike and different from each other. The first thing that we're going to talk about is viruses. Now, viruses are unique because they are actually the only non-living thing on our list of 4 things today. Viruses are non-living, but they can reproduce. So in our last video, we talked about the criteria for living things, and if something meets some of the criteria but not all of the criteria, then it is classified as a non-living thing. Even though viruses can reproduce, they don't meet the other criteria for living things, so they are considered non-living, even though they do meet that one piece of criteria. They also need a host to get energy. Viruses cannot live on their own. They have to have host cells to feed off of to get energy for that reproduction. So if you have a virus molecule, it cannot survive for very long on its own without a host. Lastly, viruses can cause a lot of sicknesses and are the culprit behind a lot of very common illnesses, including things like smallpox and yellow fever, and of course this week you have probably heard in the news about the coronavirus and why we're all staying home and why these videos are being made. Our next thing that we are going over in our list is bacteria. Bacteria are single-celled organisms, which, since we use the word organism, means that they are in fact living things. They meet all of the criteria to be classified as a living thing. Bacteria can be autotrophs or heterotrophs, depending on what their food source is. Some of them need to feed off of other organisms, making them a heterotroph, and some of them make their own food, which means that they are autotrophs. Some can make you very sick. If you've ever had to be on antibiotics for being sick, that was because of a sickness caused by bacteria, but some of them can actually be very helpful for you. We as humans actually have a lot of healthy bacteria in your digestive system that helps keep everything functioning correctly. So there are some really good bacteria and some really bad bacteria. It all depends on which one they are and if they're in the place that they're supposed to be. Lastly, bacteria are also referred to as nature's decomposers, which means that they kind of take care of cleaning up our environment for us. If you've ever been driving down the street and seen an animal that has been run over by a car, you know that that animal, even though it's dead, doesn't stay there forever. It eventually disappears, and you can even see it change from day to day if you happen to observe it multiple times. That is because of bacteria and other smaller organisms that are feeding off of that dead animal and causing it to decompose or slowly wither away until there's nothing left. If we didn't have those decomposers in our ecosystems, then things that have passed away would just stay there forever and nothing would ever clean them up. Our third item from our original list is fungi. Fungi are classified as eukaryotic heterotrophs, which means they are multicellular, but they don't make their own food. They have to feed off of other organisms to get energy. What's interesting about fungi is that they often look like plants, and if you go to the grocery store, mushroom, which is a fungi, is often put in with vegetables, which are plants. But fungi are not actually plants because they don't meet all of the criteria to be considered a plant. The main one that they don't meet is that they are not autotrophs. We know from our last video that autotrophs are things that get their energy from the sun through photosynthesis. Plants are autotrophs, but fungi are not, making them heterotrophs. The final item on our list is protists. Protists are unique because they can be unicellular or multicellular, and they can be autotrophs or heterotrophs. Protists are basically the category for scientists to use when a living thing doesn't fit into one of the other categories. Protists are all classified as organisms, but it's kind of a category for everything that doesn't fit into a different category. Some things that do count as protists are algae, which is that stuff that grows over lakes and ponds, amoebas, and slime molds. So again, protist is just kind of the category for everything that doesn't fit somewhere else. It's like the lost and found bin of biology. Alright, let's do some compare and contrast to go over those 4 categories that we just talked about. First, things that are multicellular versus unicellular. Bacteria are unicellular, they only have one cell. Fungi are always multicellular, they always have more than one cell. But protists can be either. You'll notice the only one that's not in this compare and contrast category is viruses. That's because viruses don't have cells, they are made of particles because they are non-living things. Our next compare and contrast is going to be autotrophs and heterotrophs. So we can see that nothing from the 4 things we went over today are only autotrophs. We do have 2 that can act as both. Bacteria and protists can be either autotrophs or heterotrophs depending on what variety they are. In our heterotrophs only section, we have fungi, and you could kind of consider viruses to be heterotrophs. Technically, heterotrophs only applies to living things, but we did talk about the fact that viruses need a host in order to get energy, which technically means it feeds off of an organism. So not technically a heterotroph because it's not a living thing, but if we're talking about it in terms of where it gets its energy, it does need to feed off of another organism, just like fungi does. And our last compare and contrast category is just to go over which things are living things or organisms and which things are non-living things. On our list today, we had 3 living things or 3 organisms. That would be protists, bacteria, and fungi. And we had 1 non-living thing, which is viruses. I hope this video helped you review. If you were confused about some of the topics we covered in this video, it's probably because you missed the last one, which was the introduction to living things. So if something in this video was confusing, make sure you go check out the other ones so that you can review. I hope this video was helpful for you, and I hope that you are staying safe and healthy inside, away from other people. Bye!